Hello and welcome all. My name is Kalpesh Hulse and you're watching Current Affairs Club. Now this is a YouTube channel we have started with the objective to help all of you in your group discussion, personal interview as well as your competitive examination preparation. Now current affairs plays a very crucial role in a lot of examinations like UPSC, MPSC, Staff Selection Commission, banking examination and various other. But what do we do to update our current affairs knowledge? We normally go to newspapers, magazines or maybe some websites and we just understand the heading of it, but we never understand the crux of the topic. Now to help you understand from the basic, we have started this channel. Hopefully you like our work and don't forget to subscribe so that your current affairs knowledge can be updated. So let's start with today's topic. Today's topic will be bringing in transparency in electoral funding and we'll give a lot of emphasis on state funding of election concept. So let's start with today's topic. Indian election is the world's biggest poll battle. According to Election Commission of India, which oversees the election, there were more than 814 million people eligible to vote. There were more than 9,30,000 polling stations and there were more than 1,866 registered political parties. The turnout was about 63% and BJP won the majority by getting more than 282 seats. Now the magic figure that is required to form a majority is about 272. So BJP got more than that and hence they formed a government. Money is most important when it comes to winning an election. Money can influence the voters in a lot of ways. Now we'll try to find out what are the various factors in which money can be useful. And the first factor that will definitely come to your mind is advertisement. Yes, we see a lot of advertisement in newspapers, TV, radio, social media. Now all of these ads are not free. The political parties or the candidates need to pay a huge amount of money for that. You'll be surprised to know that a cost of advertisement on a TV can go from lakhs to crores. So that is the amount of money that is required for advertisement on TV. Money is required to buy voters, money is required to tamper with the opinion polls, money is required for transportation, communication, petrol and all the other things. Apart from that, money is also required if you want to get a seat for registered political parties. After that, money is also required to purchase the elected representatives if the majority is not formed in the government. Sometimes money is also required to pay your opponent so that he withdraws from that particular election. Likewise, money is also required to organize a lot of rallies, events and various other things. So money plays a very crucial role. But there is a limit which has been put over by the Election Commission on these candidates. For example, in Lok Sabha election, a candidate is allowed to spend nearly 70 lakh rupees. But when it comes to the state election, they are allowed to spend just 28 lakh rupees. But the important point here is that there is no restriction on the political parties. They can spend as much as they want. After understanding the importance of money, now let's have a look at the various sources of generating funds for political parties. Now the biggest source of funds to any political parties or candidate is unknown source. Yes, you heard it right. According to Association of Democratic Reforms and National Election Watch, the biggest contributor to any political party is unknown source. Unknown source has contributed more than 4,000 crore rupees in the last 7 years. Now obviously a question might have been raised in your mind, how is it possible that unknown source will contribute such a huge amount of money? Yes, it is possible and that's why we are covering today's topic. According to Section 29 of Representation of People Act, the political parties are required to declare details of contribution or donations of more than rupees 20,000 only. If the donation is less than 20,000, then they need not to maintain any record of that. So you might have guessed it correctly by now. If the donation is more than 20,000 rupees, what they do is simply distribute it in amounts which are less than 20,000. So that in the books, it can be written that the donation was less than 20,000 rupees. The party also accepts a lot of money through common people. They take donations, they take voluntary contribution, they get money through membership fees and various others. The other source of income can be through the sales of asset, through interest, and by selling a lot of books and other publications of a particular political party. Candidates of the respective party also give a lot of donations to their parties. Now it is again subjective whether they are forced to do it or they are willingly doing it. But they have to pay a lot of money sometimes to get a particular ticket or sometimes to get a respectable position in the particular political party. Private companies are the biggest contributor to any political party. Now they get tax benefit also. Private companies are not fooled to invest in any political party. They obviously have some hidden agenda behind it. Once the political party comes to power, they make sure that they get some undue advantage because of it. So this is not good, not just for the elections, but for the democracy and the country as well. To bring in more transparency of corporate funding in political parties, government introduced electoral trust. Moving on, we have again one of the biggest contributor to political parties, and that is black money. I obviously did not to talk more upon it because you know it much better than me, who is generating black money and how it is utilized. The final point is foreign contributions. Foreign contributions are not allowed according to Indian rules, but still a lot of major political parties are accused of accepting foreign contributions through various means. Because of lack of transparency, money is used to influence people, and because of which wrong candidates and wrong political parties are getting elected. So we'll now look at what is the need of bringing in more transparency will help the right candidate to get elected in the elections. Now this right candidate will obviously work more towards the benefit of the citizens and his constituency, ultimately helping people to come out of poverty and moving towards development. Will reduce black money in politics. Now the mere cost of running an election is more than 70 lakh rupees. So anyone who comes into power, he works hard to make sure that he gets out maximum money as much as possible so that he can again run for the next election. So again, this black money is building up. So if we bring in more transparency, this black money can be reduced. Transparency will help the political parties and the candidates to take correct political decisions because they need not to depend upon private companies for their funding. So even if they need to take a decision which is against these private companies, they can go further and take this decision because they are no more worried about the funding part. So this will again encourage the political parties and the candidates to take a right and politically correct decision. If you have transparency, then money cannot be used to buy voters, and if this is not done, then we might get proper decisions of a particular election. Transparency will allow each political party and its candidate to use mediums like newspaper, radios, social media, etc. Now what is happening is the rich political parties purchase all the prime media slots of TVs, prime spaces of newspapers, and they don't allow other political parties to do their publicity. Now this is again an abuse of money. Transparency will eradicate the dependency on foreign funds, it will increase accountability, and will also bring up a healthy competition amongst political parties. Now let's have a look at the rules and laws related to funding of election. The first rule that we'll have a look at is called as Representation of People's Act. Under the section 29C of this act, every political party is entitled to accept contributions offered to it by any person or company voluntarily, but not from government companies. The political parties are required to declare their details of contribution of more than 20,000 rupees to Election Commission to get tax benefit. The second rule that we have here is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 1976. According to section 2 of this act, no political party is allowed to accept any contribution from any foreign sources. Third rule that we have here is Companies Act 2013. According to section 182 of this act, companies donating funds to political parties should exist for more than 3 years, and they can donate only up to 7.5% of their average net profit, and that too with the permission of board of directors. They also need to declare this in their profit and loss statements. Indrajit Gupta Committee on State Funding of Elections 1998. This committee endorsed partial state funding to recognize national and state political parties. They suggested free time for 7 national and 34 state political parties on state-owned TV and radios. Also suggested donations of above rupees 10,000 to be done only through check and ready. The 1999 Law Commission of India report. This report upheld Indrajit Gupta Committee finding and said state funding is not possible. It advocated political parties to have internal democracy, maintenance of account auditing, strict regulatory framework. The next is RTI. Political parties are not under Right to Information Act. Parties feel that it will lead to leakage of political strategy, leakage of sensitive information about distribution and denial of tickets. It will reduce competitiveness, secrecy and internal decision making of a particular political party. The political party also argue that they cannot maintain records, required for Right to Information Act. I also feel that the objective of Right to Information Act was to provide information on government functioning and not on political party functioning. Going back to the year 2017, Finance Minister Mr. Arun Jaitley came up with two new proposals in the same direction. The first one was that he reduced the limit of 20,000 which was set up in the Representation of People Act 1951 to 2,000 rupees. And the second one was introduction of electoral bonds. Now in the first one, even if they have got the limit down to 2,000 rupees, still it is not serving the purpose. Let me give you an example. Suppose if I donate 1 lakh rupees, then it can again be bifurcated into 100 donations of 1,000 rupees. So again the purpose of reducing the value from 20,000 to 2,000 doesn't make much sense. Now the second one is introduction of electoral bonds. Private companies fear their money by check or DD as they feel their names will be leaked and it will put them in bad light in front of the other political parties, and it may even lead to political rivalry. To solve this issue, government has introduced electoral bonds. Donors can buy these bonds from any notified bank and make donations. These bonds will be redeemed by Election Commission. These bonds will be anonymous for parties, but bonds can only be purchased through check and DD. The third and the most important point, which Prime Minister said, that he is also okay with the idea of state funding of election. Now let us understand what is state funding of election, what are the advantages and disadvantages of state funding of elections. State funding means providing public fund to the political parties and its candidate for election. In simple language, it means that the government will give them money through its treasury to run for election. The objective of state funding is to reduce the black money and to make it unnecessary for political parties to accept fund from private companies. Public funding will help create a healthier democracy by giving all parties a level playing field and equal opportunities. But the prerequisite for that is clear, transparent and accepted mechanism of allocation of necessary fund, resources and facilities. Legislators need to be introduced to guarantee reporting, disclosure, accountability and transparency. Independent agencies like the Election Commission need to be established which will have a look at the working of this state funding of election. State funding of election can be of two types: direct state funding and indirect state funding. Currently in India, we follow indirect state funding. In direct state funding, we directly give them money to run for the election. But in indirect state funding, we don't give money, but we give something in kind. Now the advantages of state funding are, it limits the influence of interested money, it increases the transparency, it reduces the black money election, which can help in implementation of strict rule against private companies. It will allow good leaders to enter the politics. The money factor to win election will reduce. Election will become more about issues and not about money. It will become easy for the Election Commission and the income tax authorities to keep check on spending of money. Now let us have a look at some of the disadvantages of state funding of elections. First advantage is that the priority should be towards school development, education development, infrastructure development, hospital development and not towards election. The money that the government has in its treasury should be invested much wisely and for better purposes. Status quo problem. Political parties and candidates both take the decision and collect the money. The decision to allocate public funds to parties and candidates is most often taken in national legislature. This means that political parties and candidates who will collect the money will also take the decision. This will lead to status quo situation. Taxpayers will be forced to support political party whose view they do not share, and it will also lead to increase in the taxes. So today we saw about the importance of money, how money is collected by political parties, what are the various laws and regulations regarding this, and finally we saw about the state funding of election. I would like to conclude by saying that creating awareness is very important. The citizens of our country are still not aware and they accept money against their vote. It should be made compulsory for all the political parties to do all of their spending through a single bank account, and that too cashless. Political parties should be brought under RTI. If political parties are brought under RTI, then transparency will get a huge boost. There is a limit on the expenditure, but this limit should be properly checked. State funding of the election should obviously be allowed. State funding will again give a boost to the transparency. It will give limited funds to both the parties as well as the candidate, and they will make sure that the election expenses are done through this funds only. It will help the Election Commission and the Income Tax Authority to keep a track of their spending. So this will again be very important and beneficial for the transparency of the elections. Anonymous donations should be banned. I agree that the Finance Minister has brought down the limit from 20,000 to 2,000, but I feel that it should be reduced to zero, because only then black money won't enter the politics. Strong Lokpal can also help us in bringing transparency into the electoral funding. That's it from my side. Thank you so much for listening to us. We promise that we'll come every week with a new current affairs topic. Till then, kindly subscribe, like and share. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.